This is a City AM Studios production.
Hello and welcome back to Business as Usual, brought to you by Okta, with me, Martin Kimber.
And me, Matt Kenyon. Coming up, the boss of Barclays has warned that the UK is getting a reputation for instability.
The clothing brand Patagonia takes Pattie Gonia, the drag queen, to court for just $1.
And why the World Cup might be an economic double-edged sword for its host countries.
Welcome back to Business as Usual, the show that puts the soul into insolvency.
As ever, we are very lucky to be joined in the studio by our city editor and jazzy Thai sporter, Simon Hunt.
Thank you.
It's actually more reserved than usual today, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit less jazzy than it is, but hey.
Well, some lovely geometric patterns going on. First of all, Simon, we've had some pretty damning remarks about the state of UK PLC from none other but than the chief of Barclays. What has he said?
Yeah, so Barclays have put a report out on the sort of, I suppose, the state of the UK, the state of the UK PLC, and there are parts of it that are pretty damning. Among other things, it says narratives play a pivotal role in shaping foreign investment intentions, and there have been occasions in recent past where the UK has lost control of its international narrative to the detriment of foreign investment.
What time span is he talking about? Is he talking about like the last year, 6 months? 5 years?
Well, it's a
10
good
years?
question. I think there is. They're deliberately being slightly obtuse there in order not to seem too political. But I think in the grand scheme of things, they are saying that our political instability is having an effect on people's investment decisions. And we do now have what I guess is become known as an Italian style of politics, where we seem to rotate
Although they've
leaders.
had the same prime minister since 2022,
Well, yeah,
so they're a bit of a
an
paragon
old school Italian style, where we've had one prime minister every 2 years or even less than that, and it is having an effect on the economy.
But to normal people, what does it mean to lose control of one's international narrative? How's your international narrative, Simon?
Well,
solid.
I think it'd be fair to say that prior to the past decade, there was a narrative of the UK as it being one of stability. There are plenty of things
It's
you can
reputation, basically.
Yeah, there are plenty of things you can criticise the UK for, but by and large, we move slowly. We don't have lots of radical shifts in our politics and our economics. We progress slowly over time.
We love a status quo.
Yeah, and we've lost a degree of that now, where it feels like there's a creeping populism. There's really no clear. It's really not clear who will win the next general election. It could well be a more populist party. And investors just don't know what the UK will look like, in the next 10 years, or even in the next 2 years, frankly.
Well, there did also used to be a sense back in the day that you'd have like maybe one prime minister every 7 or 8 years, and they broadly would just be taken into a room in Downing Street, and they would take on a sort of consensus view. So Blair came in '97, and then he actually presented quite a lot of financial coherence and stability with the major years. But if we had someone like Nigel Farage or even Zach Polanski coming in, that would be an almost reactionary shift away from what we're seeing at the moment.
Yeah. And, some parties might do more pro-business stuff than others, but notwithstanding whatever any future party might do, it is just the question about whether any future government will be stable, and notwithstanding whatever their policies might be. And I'll leave the final word with the boss of Barclays, known as Kombator Sudararajan Venkatakrishnan, known internally as Venkat, I suspect for time reasons, who says, "We must now fight more assertively for our place in an increasingly competitive world." So there you go.
Well, one business, Simon, that was slightly uncompetitive until very recently was Denby, not our comment editor, Alice Denby, but the pottery company. And we have an update on its future.
Yes, so one company that certainly has lost its grip on its narrative the past few months has been Denby. It went into administration earlier this year. It's been one of those manufacturers that's really been hit by the surge in energy prices that we've seen lately. So it collapsed, and there was a question about whether it was going to lose all of its staff, whether it would just fully shut down, or whether someone might swoop in and rescue it. And it looks like, nothing's been confirmed at the moment, but according to Sky News, Mark Kleiman, also has a City AM column, of course, Home Bargains is set to come in and try and pick up the pieces. So we'll see. We don't know at this stage whether they'll be successful, but they are apparently preparing a bid to rescue this beloved 200-year-old pottery brand.
And do I get the sense that pick up the pieces with a pottery joke then?
That was the intention.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So one more thing, Simon, just to ask you about. Why is it that we could be looking at a world where Deliveroo drivers can cycle faster through London parks than regular Lime bike users?
So this was a little story by London Centric, the Substack newsletter. They found out that Lime, which has contracts with various different London local authorities, will set conditions with different ones where, for example, in areas of high levels of, where there are high levels of pedestrians or where there is some kind of danger or safety concern, Lime bikes will be restricted to a lower speed of 10 miles an hour or below in those areas, of which parks are an obvious example. But Lime had explored cutting those restrictions for Deliveroo drivers. In other words, if the average Lime user wants to go through a park, they can't go very quickly. But Deliveroo drivers can absolutely whiz through at top speed. Now that story has come out, Lime have said, well, we've ended this. It was just a trial. It's not going to be a permanent thing. Don't worry about it, guys. But I think if they hadn't said anything other than that, there would have been a lot of uproar across London, I would have thought.
Well, Christian May will be very glad he can get his shawarma even faster now than he could before.
Curry in a hurry.
Very good.
Simon, thanks very much.
Right, so coming up after the break, Patagonia takes the drag queen Pattie Gonia to court, and why the World Cup might not be all good economic news for its host countries. Don't go away. This episode is brought to you by Okta. AI agents are everywhere now, quietly making decisions across organisations. That's great until you stop and think, who's in charge?
If you don't know who an agent is, what it's connected to, or what it's allowed to do, you can't really trust it to act in your interests. That's the bit Okta focuses on. They secure the identity of AI agents, so there's one clear layer of control across the whole system.
Which means every agent has a clear identity, permissions, and a line of accountability, even as things scale.
Risk becomes something you manage, not guess at. Secure every agent, secure any agent. Okta secures AI.
Welcome back to Business as Usual. Now, the outdoor brand Patagonia, known for its gilets aimed at trendy corporate types, is taking Pattie Gonia to court. To clarify, Pattie Gonia is a drag queen who's being taken to court for infringement of trademark for damages of, wait for it, $1. There's a lot going on here, but our professional services editor, Maria Ward-Brennan, is here to talk us through what the hell is going on. Maria, make sense of it for us.
Yes, it's not every day you see drag queen getting sued in the headline, but, today is the day for that. This case is obviously over in the US. Patagonia sort of had issues with the fact that quite similar branding name in terms of the drag queen name. It's sort of similar to the brand name of Patagonia. So, as usual with businesses, and especially business that size, they will have their own trademark that they pay for, that they want to keep up to date. And, from what they're seeing with this is this person is infringing on that by using the brand to sell off their...
But that just feels crazy because this is so obviously a parody. And no reasonable-minded person could say, actually, Patagonia is now a drag queen and a cabaret performer. This is someone who, just from what I was looking at, was doing raising quite a lot of money for charity and clearly just doing parody shows with very clearly not actually wearing Patagonia. Why do they feel like they need to put this case forward, and why for such a nominal fee?
Yes, so I can understand where the outcry. So it's been a lot of media backlash from people, from fans, and from their own fans as well. But you can understand it from the business perspective of this. In order to have your trademark really active and alert, and the brand that you pay for, they're quite hard to sort of secure over the world. So take this one, this was issued in the US. You really have to seek legal action. You have to make sure people are not infringing on it, because if they start doing it, then there's no point to having a trademark. Trademarks are redundant at that point.
But how do you balance the PR fallout with the legal benefit? I mean, McDonald's, were quite famous for taking people to court for calling themselves McChina if they were a takeaway. I quite that is one actually in Wimbledon.
100%. And this
Oh, and you've called them out.
But it's not a good reputation you get taking the little people to court.
And it's not. And this is where businesses find themselves, and especially a bigger entity like Zara is probably your most well known. Like, they get slapped on. It's very easy to do a story story and very easy for people who don't understand the legality behind it. But for brands, at the end of the day, they have their reputation to have bought and secured this trademark. This is the legality of their business. And you just can't really have people running off that because it makes the whole point of trademarks redundant. So there is issues around that. And the whole point is that, lawyers will advise them. It's a very tricky area of law because, again, it's extremely tricky anyway.
But on what Matt was saying, like parody law in America does exist, and it is a sort of loophole for copyright claims. So I don't know if either of you ever watched Nathan Fielder. He did a parody Dumb Starbucks, and they took him to court and lost. Because it was quite clearly a parody of Starbucks. So do you think Pattie Gonia has a leg to stand on?
Again, I think they are going to try and fight this. I think they're going to fight it through the media first, but it looks like Patagonia is going full, trying to issue.
Well, they've put out quite an apologetic statement as well, being like, we feel like we have to do this.
Yes.
Sort of they do credit Pattie Gonia for all of her charity work and all that jazz. So it does feel like they probably have a big comms team who are crisis managing just an impossible comms situation.
And every lawyer who focus, and I've spoken to trademark lawyers on this issue that's going to be in our story as well, it is a very difficult tightrope. Businesses are on a double-edged sword. Damn if you do, damn if you don't. But at the end of the day, it is all self-importance at this point. You can't be worrying about the smaller firm. You have to worry about your own business. That's the whole point of trademarks.
And you really, at the end of the day, don't want to lose your trademark.
No.
Maria, thank you very much. I'm sure we'll have you back very soon in the studio. And finally, we are just over a week away from the start of the FIFA World Cup, and fans from all over the globe are set to descend on the US, Canada and Mexico, splashing the cash on uber expensive tickets and accommodation. But the economic impact for the host countries might not be exactly what you'd expect. And joining us to explain why is our Deputy Sports Editor, Matt Hardy.
Hi lads, how you doing?
Very well, thank you. And thank you for coming back.
Well, I was
joining us in the studio again.
I think it's in my contract.
Yeah. And we're very, very happy to enforce that contract right here. So you would think, and just from the sort of London 2012 legacy, that it's only ever going to be rosy economic news if you're hosting such a big sporting tournament. Is that the case for the World Cup?
Weirdly, no, this time round. It looks kind of like we're going to see Iran impacting parts of the economy that would otherwise offset things that like tickets, hospitality, food and beverages, etc., etc. Especially in America, there was some research from Natixis that said that Mexico are expected to have a small jump, but in the summer, tourism in Mexico is so good anyway that kind of actually what are they gaining that they wouldn't already be gaining? Millions of people going and enjoying what Mexico has to offer. What is interesting is looking kind of at some of the European countries who are among the favourites: France, England, Spain. Can we drink enough this summer? This is not a challenge, Martin. Can we drink enough this summer to boost parts of our economy that are able to offset, services and manufacturing that might go down because of Iran? Like, the answer is probably no.
Really? Because there has always been the sense, because we've had quite a few sets of tournaments over the last few years which have felt like a big economic boost. So like various Euros, various women's Euros, various women's World Cups. And there has at least been the sense that pubs feel busier, bars feel busier. Is that just not going to be enough, that excitement to, I suppose, counteract the economic pressures?
Probably not, especially if you take Britain here. There's only so many frozen pizzas and kind of bottomless brunches we can
just
buy.
Describing my fridge. There's just beers and frozen
Beers,
pizzas.
frozen pizzas. There's only so many things you can stock up from that middle aisle at Lidl that can kind of use your summer kind of hosting experience. The pub's the same. You were talking the other week about how much pubs can take in one evening, but the reality is it's going to be offset by problems elsewhere.
So I always thought, because I don't know, did the Olympics when they were in London, they make us any money?
So the research that came in to the sports desk said that the quarter where the Olympics were, the third quarter of 2012, we saw a bump of just shy of 0.5% in GDP. But then the fourth quarter of that year was just 0.2. So yes, there was a bump. It wasn't significant. Obviously, that also comes down to it was a summer at home in Britain. We already had. We had to build all that infrastructure, so there was manufacturing services and everything going on. So
because I always thought these big events drive a lot of revenue, but actually I've heard apparently the Eurovision Song Contest doesn't make any money for in fact, it bankrupts the host country, whoever hosts the Eurovision Song Contest, which I'm told is why the BBC intentionally picks these terrible artists. So if we're
What a
just
fun conspiracy theory.
it's better than we just have no discernible talent in this country. So are we basically saying that these big events are countries going to want to still do them if they get a reputation for bankrupting the country or not benefiting the country that they're in?
I think Britain's in a really good spot here because we've got so many stadiums across so many sports.
Actually, we've built so much of the infrastructure from London 2012.
So yeah, exactly that. And you look at West Ham, and okay, we were talking last week about the lesser tax we're going to get from it, but that stadium is still there during the Olympics. We used Wimbledon for the tennis, we used Lords, the cricket ground, for the archery, we used Greenwich, and we used Horse Guards Parade for equestrian and volleyball. So when you've got that kind of historical, cultural kind of reference points, it's so much easier to host these things. Expect the big hitters like Saudi, who are going to host the World Cup in 8 years' time, to keep going. Expect places like Egypt, who are building a brand new capital city with an Olympic park, to bid for these things. But other than that, expect regional bids. So we're looking at a British Olympic bid for the 2040s for the North, where maybe the athletics is in, I was going to say Moscow, where the athletics is in Manchester.
That'll be into the 15th year of it.
To me, it might as well. It's equidistant to me.
And the rugby sevens is in Newcastle, and the cycling somewhere else. We might see this kind of economically different Olympics going forward.
Anyway, on football news, on the topic of a shirt worn by someone called Pele at the 19th.
Do you know who Pele is?
I worked in the last job. I had to find a guest to come on the telly to talk about the death of Pele, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done because I first had to Google who Pele was. Anyway, he apparently wore a shirt at the 1958 World Cup final, and it's up for auction.
Yes.
How much is it expected to sell for?
Well, it looks like the conservative estimate is $6 million. The record for this kind of thing belongs to Maradona, the Argentine, who famously, I don't know, your football reference is the hand of God, where he scored with his hand, or didn't if you're from Argentina.
Yes.
That went for 9.2 million. But 1958, Brazil won the World Cup in Sweden.
Rummaging through his wardrobe.
Well,
now.
this was donated. It's been in a private collection for an awfully long time. But I was
Is the
trying.
implication that it's like unwashed from that day? I always wondered that. Like,
it's that
Can
moment.
we clone Pele from the shirt?
I will tell you this: there is a company that does do a place where you can buy match-worn shirts and stuff, and they do have quite a fun thing that they have to clean it to make sure that there's no interesting stuff on it. But anyway,
I'm quite happy that is the general policy.
But I thought I'd bring this back to something you'd understand, Martin, and I thought 1958 there were three things that happened that I thought would be quite interesting. NASA was created.
Right, I know about
It was
that.
only created in 1958.
Yeah.
NASA, as we know it as
from
NASA.
1950 to landing on the moon in 1969. That's
yeah,
quite
that's
a
pretty
big
good.
feat.
Yeah.
The Academy Award went to Bridge Over the River Kwai.
Very
Good,
good.
great film.
And something for the Brexiteers out there, it was the beginning of the European Common Market.
Wow. God, and almost
1958.
20 years before we were allowed in.
Yeah, so that was the first World Cup win under the European Common Market.
Well, I like that. I like
was
when you
quite
put things
sweet.
into perspective that I can understand.
Well, I just know that you. We haven't spoke about it on your podcast since, but Martin recently discovered village cricket, and there's sport for everyone. Maybe this is
I'm a
this
big
could be your
advocate
next
for
thing.
grassroots sport now. Yeah.
Well, Matt, that was so illuminating. We were tipping forwards for a couple of weeks in the future. We also went almost 70 years into the past.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. So thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. That's one kind of fewer I have to do now. The contract strikes one.
No, I
That
don't think it's finite.
It resets on Wednesdays. Thanks very much, Matt. Anyway, that's all we have time for today. Thank you so much for listening to Business as Usual, brought to you by Okta.
Do not forget to subscribe to City AM's daily and weekly newsletters. And of course, don't forget to download our free app.
It even has puzzles now. We'll be back in your podcast feeds tomorrow at 6 a.m. But for now, bye-bye.
Goodbye.